Annyeonghaseyo, welcome to the end of Korean cinema. We're reaching the end of the year, so I thought I'd talk about something unique and something human. So let's talk about director Hong Sang-soo's 2018 movie Grass, or Pulipdul. The movie stars Kim Min-hee, who's probably best known from The Handmaiden, Chung Jin-young, Kim Se-byuk, Ki Joo-bong, and many others. Kim Min-hee's character is sitting at a cafe with a laptop. She's basically a fly on the wall. As customers are having conversations, she's listening to them, drawing inspiration for her writing. If you've never seen a Hong Sang-soo movie but happen to be interested, or if you're just looking for something unique, this movie is probably the best starting point. I mean, in terms of digging into the director's filmography. Hong Sang-soo is one of those rare directors who has a totally unique voice. His movies are instantly recognizable. But they're also not for everyone. So what makes his movies unique? His use of cinematography is very simple. He uses a lot of steady shots, he just puts the characters into the frame and lets them interact with each other. He likes to zoom in and out of the original frame. Sometimes he moves the camera from one character to another, but his camera movements are always very simple. His movies are always dialogue heavy, his characters are almost always filmmakers or screenwriters, and they're usually struggling with something. And on the surface, his movies doesn't seem to be about anything in particular. But that's where the director's genius is. Usually there's an overarching theme, or multiple for that matter, but you can only make sense of it if you watch the whole movie. So why is Grass a good way to start? First of all, it's only 66 minutes. It doesn't take too much of your time, and you get a really good taste of how Hong Sang-soo works, without getting overwhelmed or bored by his style of filmmaking. Also, this movie is black and white, and for some reason it suits the director's style really well. His simple use of cinematography somehow just comes alive in a black and white setting. This is definitely his most visually pleasing movie I've ever seen. The frames, the zooms, the locations, the lighting, it all looks absolutely gorgeous. There's also an unusual amount of music in the film. His movies usually feature little to no music. Here it's mostly classical music played at the cafe. And sometimes it's really loud, but most of the time it's a great backdrop for the conversations. And sometimes the musical pieces are very different tonally to the tone of the conversations. It's fitting and off-putting at the same time, but it fits the movie. It fits the movie because most of the conversations in the film tend to be a bit uncomfortable. Most of the characters here are embarrassed about something, so the conflicting tone that the music sometimes creates just elevates the underlying sense of being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. Also, Grass seems to be richer in its themes than usual. For example, my favorite Hong Sang-soo movie is currently Right Now Wrong Then, which overall for me was about honesty. The choice of living our lives honestly or trying to put up a facade. The overall theme in Grass is not that easy to describe. Overall, the movie deals with grief, loss, sense of guilt, desperation, hardships, and the futility of life. Certain characters lost someone, certain characters lost something, and moving on is really hard for them. There's also a pretty bleak outlook on love in the movie, and it's all through just characters having conversations. Now, the really interesting thing is that these themes, although different by definition, somehow come together as one in the movie. This is something I cannot really put my finger on, and that's the genius of Hong Sang-soo. Somehow he's able to take all of these emotions, cram them into one singular emotion, and make a movie around it. It's pretty remarkable, but my absolute favorite part is the ending because there's a silver lining. This whole movie takes place in one day, by the way. And during the day, a lot of the characters are blaming each other, pointing the finger, blaming themselves even. There are things they have to get off their chests, so they're not rationalizing what they're saying. But as nighttime comes, they get a lot more quiet. And as their anger is fading, their humanity comes to the surface. And it results in a beautiful sense of togetherness. And it's all just characters having conversations at a cafe or a restaurant. This movie is a strong reminder of how much we need human relationships in our lives. Real relationships, being together with others. This is something I also neglected for years, but I realize now we need this more than ever. I was a fool to think otherwise. Now, I hope this all sounds really intriguing to you, so this is where I warn you if you're new to the director. Most people will find his movies utterly dull and boring. They're not something you can watch anytime, and they're not something most people can tolerate, I think. His movies are really simple. The genius is in the details. And it doesn't always work. I hated On the Beach at Night Alone, for example. I know a lot of people love it. I don't. Anyway, if you're looking for a unique cinematic experience, give one of his movies a try. I think Grass is the best way to start. It looks wonderful, the acting is fantastic, and it's really deep. Life is futile. But the moment that we're living now is very important because there's nothing else really. I don't know, this movie warms my heart despite all the sad stuff the characters are talking about. I'm gonna give Grass 92%. Not for everyone, but a treasure for those who happen to like it. 여러분, 오늘은 여기까지만 해요. 영상 봐주셔서 감사합니다. 이 영상 좋아하시면 구독과 좋아요 잘 부탁드립니다. See you very soon. 다음 시간에 만나요 여러분. 안녕히 계세요.